Well, the superhero bug guy is back. No, not Spider-Man. He would be an arachnid. No, not Scorpion. He's also an arachnid and a bad guy. Oh, for crying out loud, stop guessing. It's the Ant-Man. Look at the poster. It's the Ant-Man. And this time, he's with the Wasp. Okay, let's see. Where do I begin? Let's start with the fact that they really could have cut a little bit out of the film. It kind of dragged towards the beginning and the middle, but the payoff was decent. It was a little lacking for a Marvel flick, but it wasn't terrible. The cast were as good as they were in the first one, maybe even a little better. Rudd and Lily were very convincing as an on-again, off-again superhero couple, and it was fun seeing them go through their various antics. Rudd plays Ant-Man like an everyman, and a guy trying to cope with the fact that he's got a checkered past and a daughter who sees him as nothing less than a superhero. I'll get more into that later. Meanwhile, Lily plays Wasp like she's trying to live up to her father's legacy as a bug-based superhero. And that causes her dad to be kind of wary, because Michael Douglas, once again, knocks it out of the park as a very haunted man. Wasp is basically a modern soldier, and the original Ant-Man, Douglas's character, is basically a war vet that doesn't want to admit that he's got a little bit of PTSD. And I'm the son of a vet, so I kind of know what I'm talking about. I've done the research. And they're both very convincing as a military family, not counting Rudd's character. As for Rudd's character's daughter, the actress playing her broke the mold of child actors. She was so entertaining. She felt like a kid and not a little adult. She reacted in a way a kid in this universe would react to stuff, and her interactions with Rudd felt very organic. I believed that this was a father-daughter pair. And honestly, it felt like he would be raising her on his own, even though the mom and the stepdad were in the picture. Speaking of those two, they did okay. Their presence was reduced, but they still felt like they should be in this universe. It was very convincing. The villain was the current typical mess of Marvel villains. Clearly unhinged, but unhinged due to past trauma. You really felt for her. I mean, her backstory was kind of a tearjerker, but that doesn't excuse her actions. I'm just glad that Marvel is going for proper villains with depth. I just hope this new approach doesn't cause them to be more cookie cutter. Like this might be the new cutter in question. And as for the rest of the cast, Ant-Man's former gang, funny, and kind of plot relevant in places. The side villains, entertaining, but kind of a speed bump in places. Kind of comic book villain for villainy sake-ish. But okay. Other side heroes, including Lawrence Fishburne, they did okay. And they even got some decent performances out of the background police and federal characters. Especially Johnny or Jimmy Woo. Go look him up. He's the actor who played the dad on Fresh Off the Boat. He was funny in that series, and he was decently, I would say, Silver Age comics to a degree in this show. And even though he was technically a foil for Ant-Man, you couldn't help but root for the guy. Like, he deserves to be a superhero too. Like, FBI man. Anywho, the effects were pretty decent. Typical Marvel fare. There were a couple scenes that looked like they needed a bit of polish. This is where my tongue stops working. But the numerous ants that were in the picture and the various grow shrink effects were fairly convincing. And the big finisher for the effects, a place called the Quantum Realm, that was once again a total head trip. Luckily it wasn't a headache because I didn't do the 3D thing like I did last time. And honestly, it didn't take away from the overall enjoyment of the film. It looks like the 3D fad is finally petering out. And no one's shedding a tear. The music was a good mix of oldie pop songs and excuse me, and classic comic book fanfare, like fanfares and trumpets. I thought it fit, and it also gave us nice quiet moments. But some of the quiet moments were a little too long, so that's why I said it dragged a bit. But like I said, things picked up. As for the overall theme, the action was maybe subpar for a Marvel film, but it didn't feel like an overload. Maybe if it had increased the action just a little bit, it would have been a good balance, because sometimes it was a little too quiet, but in that quiet there were good moments of comedy, like sitcom type witty humor, which worked for me. And there was some drama in places. Like, there were moments of tension. You knew it was all going to work out, but there were a couple of white-knuckle moments that you didn't know what way was going to go, or what was going to happen. I need to word better. Anyway, I wouldn't call Ant-Man and the Wasp necessary viewing, but I don't want to say skip this entirely. I would say it's good for one viewing, maybe. And if you're a completist, you'll get it for your collection. But I would say this is sort of a dip in the overall quality of the Marvel Universe. But it wasn't terrible. It was good. But maybe it could have been a little better. This is Mr. J, signing out and reminding you that if there are ants in your house, you gotta spray them, because you never know when a superhero or supervillain is going to control them suddenly. Also, unhinged chicks who can phase through stuff are hot.